Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Government ministers' response to job descriptions for MPs and cabinet ministers. Burn teen airlifted to medical facility overseas for further treatment. And later in sports, Reggae Boys group finalized for CONCACAF World Cup. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. We begin with news that the police have made a major breakthrough into the attacks on armored couriers. In a statement released a short while ago, the police say a 28-year-old St. Catherine resident, Javon Bashford, otherwise called Bashi, is facing several charges under the new Firearms Act, the anti-gang legislation, and other laws. This is in relation to the Berrylium attacks in St. Thomas in April. Among the charges, wounding with intent with use of a firearm, robbery with aggravation, shooting with intent, stockpiling firearms and ammunition, and being a participant of a criminal organization. He was arrested during a sting operation on Jake's Road in Mountain View on June 9. The police say 2 high-powered weapons and over 70 assorted rounds of ammunition were seized. The accused gave a caution statement in the presence of his attorney. Friday, June 23 will be recognized as a National Day of Mourning for Children. The announcement comes on the heels of the abduction and murder of 8-year-old Daniel Rowe. At the proclamation ceremony this morning, Justice Minister Leroy encouraged Jamaicans to wear black as the country remembers little Daniel, but to also rebuke those who hurt children.
Wholeheartedly supports this proclamation to make Friday, June the 23rd, 2023, a day when all well-thinking Jamaicans are encouraged to wear black to remember and mourn the victims of violence. By wearing black on Friday, we aim to send a clear message, inviting every Jamaican to recognize that our children are precious and deserve our care, attention, and protection.
Reactions have been pouring in following the tabling of the Green Paper detailing job descriptions for members of Parliament and cabinet ministers in the lower house yesterday. Speaking at this morning's post-cabinet press briefing, 2 members of the Holness-led administration says a lot of thought went into the document.
Just yesterday or Monday when we did it, we've been looking at it. And so we're at a place now where we're saying to the nation, in Parliament, which is where we must go, this is what we're looking at to hold ministers accountable. Now, remember, as Minister Morgan said, I heard him on the radio saying it, maybe yesterday, that there are other documents. There's a code of conduct for ministers that was already in vogue and tabled that might be looked at and adjusted, but it's there.
It will assist, I think, in 3 ways. Defining the parameters of duties, skills, abilities, elements that are required for this job will help somebody who's looking on to know if they want to get into it. It will help the person who is involved in the job to know exactly in a written way what they are being held accountable for. And I think thirdly and most importantly, for the citizens that we serve, it will allow them to have a better understanding of what the parameters of this awesome responsibility is, and perhaps I'm hoping it would allow for us to focus our attention on those relevant matters within the job description.
The 9-page job description for government ministers outlined a number of requirements and deliverables. They include attending cabinet meetings, coordinating and providing policy and strategic leadership of the portfolios. Cabinet ministers also have to get feedback from experts on areas within their portfolios, provide reports to Parliament, pilot legislation, and carry out any other duties assigned by the Prime Minister. PNP President Mark Golding continues to blast the government for what it describes as an attack on the Integrity Commission. Mr. Golding, while defending the commission, says it must be able to operate without any hindrance. More in this report.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness might have called for a cessation of the triads between some members of his administration and the Integrity Commission, but that hasn't stopped the criticisms from the opposition. This was PNP President Mark Golding at a party meeting in Dry Harbour Division in St. Anne.
Because when you see how they are taking on the Integrity Commission in Parliament and they want to restrict its investigation powers, they want to restrict its prosecutorial powers. Them, of course, the leadership of it. Obviously, they know something is amiss.
Government members, to include MP for Southwest St. Catherine Everett Warmington, indicate recently they have no issues with the Integrity Commission. The members argued that the commission must operate within the constraints of the law. But the opposition sees things differently.
The country must take sleep and mark death. Don't let them people mash up the Integrity Commission. Defend it and nurture it. We want a clean country. We want a country where politics isn't run by corruption. The next People's National Party will ensure that that is the case. I am not going to tolerate corruption in our government.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness signaled that a joint select committee reviewing the Integrity Commission Act should increase the pace at which it deliberates and meet more frequently. For Mr. Golding, however,
and I say to Jamaica, don't let the Labour Party undermine that institution. Defend that institution, because we don't want a country where corruption dominates the politics of the country. The country must be able to move beyond that system of corruption that the JLP has brought on the land.
Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
14-year-old Akelia Dunkley is one step closer to getting emergency medical treatment to save her life. TVJ News was on site as a medical ambulance airlifted the teenager from the University Hospital of the West Indies to a medical facility in Georgia this morning.
Her case is not as severe like Adriana, so we know it's going to work out good. But if she had stayed longer, then we know. So we are really happy for the quick response.
She was at home in Black River preparing breakfast last Friday when the stove she was using exploded. Local and overseas donors helped the family secure $45,000 that is needed for her medical care. However, more funds will be needed for rehabilitation. The body of a ward of the state who drowned over the weekend is yet to be recovered. 14-year-old Leroy Anderson drowned on Saturday at the Yallas Beach in St. Thomas. Reports are that the teen was left in the care of a family friend by his foster mother. He, however, went swimming with a group of children. He encountered difficulties and drowned. Acting CEO of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA, Michelle McIntosh Harvey, says the agency has been providing support to relatives of the deceased teen. She, however, notes that a lack of proper supervision is a contributing factor to the number of children reported missing, being abused, or who experience other forms of tragedy. It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. A St. Elizabeth family is counting their losses after fire destroyed a section of their house in burnt Savannah. According to reports, sometime after 7 Tuesday, family members were outside when they were alerted to a fire inside the house. They surmise the fire could have been caused by a candle which had been lit when the power went.
We round there at chat and thing, and she round there chat. But we in a dark, we not turn on the light or a flashlight on. And then her husband said, he smell something. and we step up and him come forward. And by them 4 years, so he could even drive the sheet off a bit or anything, a bit in the fire.
Nothing was saved. Family members visiting from abroad are particularly affected as their travel documents went up in flames.
Me get pipe and hose and all them things there and we do a little yes wet. But
so what are what you lose in the fire?
Like everything inside there, it burn up passport, everything. All of them suitcase, everything.
Oh, and about how many persons left homeless at this time? How many of you live here?
And 3 of them come down.
And you make 4?
And we live on my side, we live on a different side.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report. In this evening's health report, we look at the human papillomavirus, HPV.
Some of the complications that, or long-term complications that can occur from removing a piece of the cervix, or one common complication is that the person may develop cervical incompetence, and that's the inability of the cervix to hold a pregnancy to term. So what can happen with some of these patients is that they may eventually have a miscarriage, usually in the 2nd trimester of pregnancy, if a stitch is not placed in prior to about the 2nd trimester of the pregnancy.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Get the HPV vaccine. Get screened and tested regularly. Practice safe sex. And protect your partner or partners. It's time for the Business Minute.
The Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, continues to urge regional governments to explore opportunities for collaboration. Addressing the opening ceremony of the 53rd annual meeting of the CDB, the entity's president, Dr. Jean Leon, said the region needs to look into a number of partnerships, including those linked to knowledge creation and skills development.
Sharing technology to improve productivity, global productivity, and focusing on national goals that can be effectively delivered through complementarities and synergies between the private and the public sectors, thereby helping to break the trust barriers that exist between public and private sectors, and unifying a focus on country prosperity.
He says this can help create jobs and business opportunities, especially for youth. Further afield, UBS says it will start cutting Asia investment banking jobs at Credit Suisse next month. UBS completed its emergency takeover of embattled rival Credit Suisse last week, forging a Swiss banking and wealth management giant with a $1.6 trillion balance sheet and a workforce of 120,000. UBS informed staff about the looming cuts on Tuesday. It was not immediately clear how many jobs will be axed in total. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Shane Masters.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the World Health Organization, WHO, has certified Belize as malaria-free, following the country's over 70 years of continued efforts to stamp out the disease. WHO's Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus congratulated the government of Belize and their network of local and global partners for the achievement. Belize now joins 41 other countries to have been certified as malaria-free by the WHO, including 11 countries in the region of the Americas. On the international scene, news that noises have been picked up in the hunt for a missing submersible has offered a glimmer of hope that the 5 men on board are alive. The sounds were recorded by a Canadian military surveillance aircraft in a massive rescue operation, which is racing against time to find the Titan in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, underwater operations have been relocated to investigate the noises. Meanwhile, questions remain how teams will reach the lost submersible, which could be as deep as 12,500 feet below the surface near the watery tomb of the historic ocean liner.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jordan Fort.